The first time I saw Emily, she was laughing, her head thrown back in sheer abandon, surrounded by a gaggle of admirers at a college party. I was a senior, jaded by the monotony of academic routines, and she was a lively sophomore, new to the freedoms of college life. Her charisma was like a beacon in the dimly lit backyard where students mingled and music blared. I lingered by the edges, nursing a cheap beer, my usual wallflower stance challenged by the pull of her infectious joy. After a couple more beers than usual, bolstered by the liquid courage, I found myself walking over to her. My heart pounded as I tapped her shoulder, the crowd parting slightly to reveal her surprised face. "Hi, I'm Sylvester. Would you like to dance?" I managed, expecting a polite no thanks to my awkward approach. She looked me up and down, a playful smile curling her lips. "Sure, why not?" she replied, her voice a mix of curiosity and amusement. As she took my hand, I could feel the eyes on us, her crowd of admirers baffled by her choice. As we danced clumsily to a fast-paced song, I leaned in, shouting over the music. "So, what's a girl like you doing in a place like this?" She laughed, the sound melodic against the thumping bass. "Trying to make the most of a bad DJ," she quipped. "And what about you, Mr. Senior? Don't you have exams to study for?" "I'm a bit of a geek. I don't usually do parties or dating, really," I confessed, suddenly feeling out of my depth. "Ah, a geek, huh? Well, tonight you're a dancer," she teased, twirling under my awkward lead. The party eventually died down, and somehow we ended up together in the privacy of my dorm room. The night was a blur of new sensations and uncharted emotions, culminating in a morning that found us both more sober and awkward in the daylight. As I awoke, the bed a testament to the previous night's abandon, I nudged Emily gently. "Morning," I mumbled, my voice rough with sleep. She groaned, shielding her eyes from the sliver of sunlight piercing the blinds. "What time is it?" Her voice was husky, filled with regret. "Time for a headache," I joked weakly, offering her a glass of water I had the foresight to prepare. She accepted it, sitting up and wrapping the sheet around herself. After a pause, she sighed. "I should get going," she said, a frown marring her previously carefree face. I walked her to the door, an uncomfortable silence between us. As she stepped into the hallway, she turned back, her expression unreadable. "Sylvester, thanks for the dance." I nodded, my stomach churning with a cocktail of emotions. "Maybe we could, I don't know, have coffee sometime?" She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maybe," she said, then disappeared around the corner, leaving me to ponder the fleeting connection we had shared. That day, as I sat alone in the aftermath, I couldn't shake the feeling that last night would change my life in ways I couldn't yet understand. Little did I know just how profound those changes would be. In the weeks that followed our awkward morning after, Emily and I settled into an unexpected routine. We'd nod at each other on campus, sometimes sharing a quick meal in the cafeteria. Despite the casual nature of our interactions, there was an unspoken tension, a mutual recognition of the night that had linked us unpredictably. I was nearing the end of my senior year, buried under a mountain of thesis work and final exams. Emily, ever the social butterfly, seemed to flit effortlessly through her sophomore year. However, our paths crossed frequently enough that the memory of that night lingered palpably between us. One chilly afternoon, as I trudged through the library's revolving doors, weighed down by textbooks, I spotted Emily seated alone at a corner table, staring blankly at a pile of notes. Her usual bright demeanor was absent, replaced by a somberness that piqued my concern. I approached hesitantly, my mind racing with possibilities. "Hey, Emily, studying hard or hardly studying?" I attempted light humor to ease into conversation. She looked up, a faint smile flickering. "Hey, Sylvester, a bit of both, I guess." Her voice was subdued, her eyes avoiding mine. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, gesturing to the empty chair. She nodded, and I sat down, arranging my books before me, yet my attention was entirely on her. We sat in silence for a few moments before she took a deep breath. "Sylvester, I need to tell you something," she began, her voice trembling slightly. I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, and my mind whirred to process them. "Pregnant?" I echoed dumbly, my heart sinking. "Yes, and it's yours." She met my gaze now, her eyes searching mine for a reaction. I felt my world tilt, a mix of fear and responsibility washing over me. "Are you sure? I mean, how can you be sure?" The question slipped out before I could consider its impact. Emily bristled slightly, her defense rising. "I haven't been with anyone else, Sylvester. I didn't plan this either, you know?" Her tone softened as she added, "I'm scared too." The gravity of the situation settled between us, heavy and daunting. "What are you going to do?" I asked, my voice low, aware that this decision affected us both deeply. "I don't know, I'm not ready to be a mother, Sylvester. But I don't think I can, you know." She trailed off, her dilemma clear. We discussed her options, circling around the potential choices without landing on any. As the library's clock ticked loudly in the background, marking the passage of time, a decision began to form in my mind, driven by a sense of duty ingrained by my upbringing. "Emily," I started, my decision firming up despite the fear. What if we tried to make this work, together?" Her eyes widened, surprised by my suggestion. "You mean, as a couple? As parents?" "Yes, I mean, we could, I don't know, get married? I'm about to graduate and I'll find work. We could figure this out together," I offered, my voice more confident than I felt. Emily looked at me, a myriad of emotions crossing her face. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. "Let's try," she agreed, her voice a mere whisper. As we left the library together that day, a new chapter began for us. Neither of us could have anticipated how a night of careless abandon would lead to a lifetime commitment, but as we stepped into the cold, our hands tentatively clasped together, there was a silent vow to face the future as one. Marriage and the abrupt entry into parenthood marked our lives like a storm that reshapes a landscape. We moved into a small apartment close to campus, where Emily continued her studies while I took up a job at a local tech firm. The days blurred into a routine of diaper changes, late-night feedings, and the constant struggle to balance work and home life. Our daughter, Kate, was a beam of joy, her giggles a balm to the exhaustion that clouded our days. Yet, beneath the surface of our domestic life, there were signs of strain that neither of us fully acknowledged at first. Emily's return to school added pressure, and her once vibrant personality seemed to dim under the weight of responsibilities. One evening, after putting Kate to bed, I found Emily at the kitchen table, her textbooks spread out before her, her face shadowed with fatigue. "Hey, you've been at this for hours," I said, pulling up a chair beside her. "Maybe you should take a break." Emily looked up, her smile weak. "I can't, Sylvester. I have a midterm tomorrow and I barely understand this material. It's all just piling up." "Maybe I can help?" I offered, though my knowledge of business law was admittedly scant. She shook her head, a frustrated tear escaping down her cheek. "You can't take this exam for me. Sometimes I wonder if it's even worth it, trying to juggle school and being a mom." Seeing her so distressed, I reached out, covering her hand with mine. "We'll make it through this. Maybe after the midterm we can find a way to ease some of this pressure." Emily nodded, squeezing my hand back, but the reassurance seemed to sit hollow between us. As months turned into a year, the cracks widened. Emily started a part-time job at a law office to gain experience and possibly alleviate our financial strain. Her time at home dwindled, and I found myself playing a dual role at home, further straining my patience and stamina. One day I returned home earlier than usual to find Emily already there, an unusual occurrence given her schedule. The apartment was quiet, too quiet, without the usual sounds of Emily and Kate's laughter or the hum of daily activity. Emily? I called out, slipping off my shoes and hanging my coat. The silence gnawed at me as I walked into the living room to find her sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the muted TV. "You're home early," I said, an edge of concern in my voice. She turned to me, her eyes tired and distant. "I got sent home. They said they didn't need me today. Or maybe ever." "What? Why?" I sat beside her, my own heart sinking with the implications. "They're downsizing, and I might have made a mistake on some paperwork last week. It wasn't even a big deal, but..." Her voice trailed off and she turned away, a clear sign of her escalating stress and dwindling confidence. I wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "We'll figure something out. You're smart. You're capable. This is just a setback. But it feels like I'm failing at everything, Sylvester. At work, at school, even at being a good wife and mother," Emily confessed, her voice breaking. I felt a surge of protectiveness, but also a pang of helplessness. "You're not failing, Em. We're just in a tough spot. We're a team, remember? We'll get through this like we always do." But as I held her, trying to offer comfort, I couldn't shake the growing fear that our hastily built life was beginning to crumble around us. The foundation we had laid in haste, driven by necessity rather than readiness, was proving to be less sturdy than I had hoped. The question loomed large in my mind. Could we find a way to reinforce it, or was it destined to fall apart? As the months slipped by, Emily's job loss morphed into a lingering shadow over our lives. She found herself struggling more deeply with the balance between school and home, her absence at home becoming more frequent as she buried herself in studies and part-time work at another law firm. I tried to fill the gaps, but the fatigue was wearing on me, and Kate, who was growing more perceptive, began to notice the tension between us. One night, after a particularly grueling day at work, I came home to find the apartment unusually silent. Kate was at my mother's for the night, a relief in some ways, but the silence felt ominous. Tossing my keys on the table, I called out for Emily, expecting her to be buried in her textbooks or perhaps asleep. There was no response. My heart thudded with a mix of irritation and concern as I walked toward our bedroom, the hallway seeming longer than usual. I noticed the light seeping from under the door, and as I pushed it open, the sight that greeted me was like a punch to the gut. Emily was there, yes, but she was not alone. She and a man, her colleague, I recognized him from a firm event, were tangled in our sheets, so caught up in their moment that my entrance barely registered. It was only when I spoke, my voice sounding foreign even to my own ears, that they noticed my presence. "What the hell is this?" My voice was a controlled calm, belying the storm of rage and betrayal swirling inside me. Emily gasped, scrambling to cover herself. "Sylvester, it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I laughed, a short, humorless sound. "It looks like you're in our bed with another man. How else should it look?" The man muttered something, grabbing his clothes in a hurry. "I should go," he said, avoiding my gaze as he edged toward the door, practically tripping in his haste. Once he'd left, the room felt even colder, the air thick with the aftermath of betrayal. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Sylvester, please. It was a mistake. I was just so overwhelmed, and he was there, and..." "And you forgot you had a husband and a daughter?" I interrupted, my voice rising despite my attempt to stay calm. "I never forgot about you or Kate," she pleaded. "It's just been so hard, and I felt so alone." "That gave you the right to cheat?" I paced the room, my mind racing as I tried to process the chaos. I don't know what I was thinking," she sobbed. "I'm sorry, I really am. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" I stopped, facing her. "It means everything, Emily. How am I supposed to trust you after this? How do we go on from here?" She reached out a hand to me, but I stepped back, unable to bridge the gap her betrayal had created. "I need some time to think about all this." Leaving the room, I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a profound sense of loss. The future we had envisioned, already cracked, now seemed irreparably broken. The path forward was unclear, and as I sat alone in the living room, the weight of the decision before me felt overwhelming. Could our marriage be saved, or had Emily's actions torn it beyond repair? The night stretched long and sleepless as I grappled with the unknown. In the weeks following the discovery of Emily's infidelity, our home became a battleground of cold silences and curt exchanges. The initial shock gave way to a bitter acceptance, and after several tense discussions, it was clear that our paths were diverging. Divorce seemed the inevitable resolution. I met with a lawyer, John, an old family friend who handled my parents' wills. His office was lined with books, a testament to his decades in practice. He was kind but direct as we discussed the specifics of the divorce. "Given the circumstances, Sylvester," John began, adjusting his glasses, "you have grounds for filing under infidelity, which might influence the custody arrangements and possibly even the financial settlements." I nodded, my stomach knotting at the thought of dragging our private failings into a public courtroom. "I don't want to drag Emily through the mud, John. What about Kate? I can't let this get messy for her sake." John leaned forward, his expression solemn. "Custody will be the critical issue here. You need to think about what's best for Kate. It's not just about punishing Emily." "I know," I sighed, feeling the weight of each decision. "I just want what's best for my daughter." The legal proceedings began swiftly. Emily hired her own lawyer, and to my dismay, the process became more contentious than I had hoped. She fought for full custody. Her argument hinged on her role as the primary caregiver while I worked full-time. During one of the mediation sessions, as we sat across from each other with our lawyers between us, Emily looked directly at me, her eyes glistening. "Sylvester, please, let's not do this. Kate needs both of us." "I agree. She needs both of us," I responded, keeping my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "But she also needs a stable environment, Emily. How can we provide that together after everything?" Her lawyer, a sharp-suited woman named Helen, interjected, "My client has made significant efforts to stabilize her life. She's attending therapy and has cut all contact with the individual involved in the incident." John glanced at me, waiting for my cue. "We acknowledge Ms. Barrett's efforts," he stated carefully. "However, my client feels that the marital trust has been irreversibly broken, which affects the overall family dynamics." The negotiations were grueling, stretching over months. It was during the final hearing that the judge called for a statement from each of us regarding our desires for Kate's upbringing. Emily went first. "Your Honor, I made a terrible mistake," she admitted, her voice cracking. "But I love my daughter more than anything, and I am committed to being the best mother I can be." When it was my turn, I stood, my hands trembling slightly. "Your Honor, I don't doubt Emily's love for Kate, but I believe that the stable home I can provide, the support of my extended family, and a consistent environment are what Kate needs right now." The judge nodded thoughtfully, scribbling notes before looking up. "I'll take these statements under consideration along with the rest of the evidence presented. Custody is a decision I do not take lightly." In the end, the judge granted me primary custody, citing my stable job and extensive family support as key factors. Emily was granted visitation rights, including weekends and holidays. The room was thick with tension as the gavel fell, finalizing the arrangement. As we left the courtroom, Emily approached me, her face pale. "Sylvester, I hope you know I'll always love Kate. I'll respect the court's decision." "I know, Emily," I replied, the bitterness of our ordeal tempered by a shared love for our daughter. "Let's just focus on making this as easy for her as we can." Navigating the aftermath of the legal battles, the focus shifted to establishing a new normal for Kate, who remained the innocent party caught in the crossfire of our failed marriage. Post-divorce life settled into a new rhythm, one marked by adjustments and quiet transformations. As the primary custodian, I rearranged my schedule to maximize time with Kate, ensuring our apartment was a stable and loving environment for her. My job was flexible enough to allow for these changes, and with my parents' support, the transition felt less daunting. Emily and I maintained a civil relationship for Kate's sake, and she came to visit her mother regularly. However, the undercurrent of our past struggles sometimes surfaced during exchanges. One crisp Saturday morning, as Emily arrived to pick up Kate for the weekend, she lingered at the door, her eyes scanning the living room where new pictures of Kate and me at various events adorned the walls. "You've changed the place around," Emily remarked, a note of something unreadable in her voice. "Yeah, felt like it was time for a fresh start for both of us," I replied, keeping my tone light. She nodded, her gaze lingering on a photo of Kate and me at the pumpkin patch. "She looks happy," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "She is. We both are. Trying to be anyway. How are you holding up?" I found myself genuinely wanting to know. "I'm managing. Therapy helps. So does seeing Kate happy." Emily smiled, then looked up at me. "I really am sorry, Sylvester. For everything." "I know, Emily. Let's just make sure Kate continues to feel loved and secure. That's what matters," I responded, handing her Kate's overnight bag. "Agreed," she said, as Kate bounded into the room, ready for her weekend away. As they left, I closed the door behind them, feeling a mix of relief and melancholy. Watching them walk away together, mother and daughter, was bittersweet. During this time of adjustment, my friendship with Sam, an old college buddy who had moved back to town, grew stronger. He became a regular visitor, his easygoing nature and sense of humor a contrast to the residual tension in my life. One evening, as we shared a beer on my couch, Sam asked, "How's the single dad life treating you, man?" "It's an adventure, man. Challenging but rewarding," I admitted, taking a sip of my beer. "You ever think about dating again? Or too soon?" Sam nudged me with a teasing smile. I chuckled, shaking my head. "Honestly, I haven't thought much about it. Just focused on Kate and getting myself back on solid ground." "Fair enough. But, life does go on. Maybe there's someone out there who'd be happy to join you and Kate on this adventure," Sam suggested, raising his eyebrows. "Maybe. But if there is, I hope she's patient and loves kids," I said, half joking. "Hey, those are reasonable boxes to tick," Sam laughed, clinking his bottle against mine. As the months passed, I indeed began to consider the idea of dating again. However, I wanted to ensure that Kate was my priority, and that anyone I might bring into our lives would understand and respect that. This period of rebuilding was not just about moving past my marriage with Emily, but also about rediscovering my own interests and passions. I enrolled in a part-time programming course, reviving an old hobby that I had put aside in the rush of married life. The balance of raising Kate, managing work, exploring personal interests, and gradually opening up to the possibility of new relationships painted a complex but hopeful picture of the future. It was a slow build, laying down one brick at a time, ensuring the foundation was solid enough to support whatever life might throw our way next. As life began to stabilize into a new normal, the wounds of the past started to heal, albeit slowly. However, a part of me harbored a simmering anger towards those I believed had exacerbated the breakdown of my marriage. The man from Emily's affair occasionally appeared in town, a constant reminder of the betrayal. My feelings, once suppressed, started to bubble to the surface, manifesting in unexpected ways. One quiet evening, as I sat discussing my lingering frustrations with Sam, he listened intently, his expression serious. "You've got to find a way to let go of that anger, Sylvester. It's not just about you anymore. Kate's watching how you handle this," Sam cautioned, leaning forward, his hands clasped around his coffee mug. I know. But every time I see that guy, it's like the wound reopens. I want him to feel some of the pain he caused," I confessed, feeling the weight of my own words. "Revenge might seem sweet, but it's a poison, my friend. It eats away at you, and nothing good comes from it," Sam replied, his tone soft yet firm. His words struck a chord, and I spent many nights pondering them, struggling with the desire for retribution and the need to set a positive example for Kate. It wasn't until an unexpected incident that I truly understood the consequences of harboring such feelings. A few weeks later, I encountered the man at a local grocery store. Our eyes met across the aisles, and the anger surged within me. Clenching my fists, I approached him. "Leaving town anytime soon?" I asked, my voice cold. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "I'm sorry for what happened, truly. I never meant to cause so much pain," he responded, his eyes not meeting mine. "Sorry doesn't change the past," I snapped back. We parted without another word, but the encounter left me shaken. That night, I had a vivid dream where Kate asked me why I was so angry all the time. I woke up sweating, her imaginary disappointed gaze searing through me. The next day, I met with my therapist, Dr. Ellis, and relayed the encounter and the impactful dream. "It's a warning, Sylvester," Dr. Ellis suggested. "Your subconscious is trying to tell you that your actions have wider repercussions, especially on your daughter. But how do I let go of these feelings? They feel justified," I admitted, frustrated and seeking guidance. "Forgiveness isn't about condoning what he did. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of anger. It's a gift you give to yourself and to Kate," Dr. Ellis explained. His advice resonated deeply. I spent many sessions working through my feelings, learning to manage the anger and move towards a place of forgiveness, however difficult it might be. As I made progress, I shared my journey with Emily during one of our co-parenting discussions. It was important that she knew I was striving for peace, for our daughter's sake. "I've been working on letting go of the past for real this time," I told her one afternoon as we watched Kate play in the park. Emily looked surprised but nodded appreciatively. "That's good to hear, Sylvester. I think it's the best thing for all of us, especially for Kate." Seeing her genuine response, I felt a sense of relief. This path of forgiveness and letting go was not just altering my internal landscape. It was subtly shifting our co-parenting relationship towards something more amicable. By confronting the consequences of revenge and choosing a different path, I was not only healing myself, but also ensuring that Kate grew up in a healthier, more positive environment. This realization marked a significant turning point in my journey post-divorce, setting the stage for new beginnings and healthier relationships. The path to healing and forgiveness was not linear, marked by setbacks and revelations, but it brought a newfound clarity and peace that I hadn't felt in years. As I worked through the remnants of my past, I found myself more present and engaged with Kate, and our bond deepened in ways I hadn't anticipated. One sunny Saturday morning, as Kate and I were finishing up a puzzle on the living room floor, she looked up at me with her bright, curious eyes and asked, "Daddy, are you happy?" Her question, simple yet profound, took me by surprise. I paused, reflecting on the months past, the therapy sessions, and the evenings spent in quiet contemplation. I smiled at her, nodding. "Yes, Kate, I am. I really am happy now." She beamed, satisfied with my answer, and turned her attention back to the puzzle. "Good, because I'm happy too," she said. That moment crystallized my resolve to maintain the peaceful environment we had cultivated. It also made me realize that I was ready to open up my heart again, perhaps even to someone new, without the shadow of my past weighing me down. Encouraged by this newfound readiness, I talked to Sam one evening over coffee at a local cafe. "I think I'm ready to start dating again," I confessed, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. Sam raised his eyebrows, a grin spreading across his face. "That's great to hear, man. Took you long enough," he teased before becoming more serious. "You know, this is a big step. You sure you're ready?" "I think so. It's not just about finding someone for me. It's about finding someone who can be a part of Kate's life too. Someone kind and understanding," I explained, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. "Hey, I might know someone," Sam said, pulling out his phone. "My cousin, Leah. She's great with kids, and you two have a lot in common. No pressure, just a casual meetup." I agreed, curious and hopeful about the possibilities this new chapter might bring. The meetup was set for a group outing at the local botanical gardens. Leah was everything Sam had described and more. Compassionate, lively, and genuinely interested in both Kate and me. Our conversation flowed easily, and I felt a connection I hadn't expected to find so quickly. After the outing, as Leah and I walked to the parking lot, she turned to me. "I had a really nice time today, Sylvester. Kate is wonderful, and you're not what I expected from Sam's stories," she laughed. I chuckled, feeling unexpectedly hopeful. "I hope that's a good thing, and I had a great time too. Maybe we could do this again, just us next time?" "I'd like that," she smiled, and we exchanged numbers. As Leah drove away, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in a long time. Turning to Kate, who was skipping alongside me, I asked, "What did you think of Leah?" "She's nice. Can she come to my birthday party?" Kate asked, looking up at me with hopeful eyes. "We'll see, kiddo. We'll see," I said, laughing as we headed home. That evening, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. It felt like a visual metaphor for my life, bright, hopeful, and continuously evolving. The challenges of the past few years had reshaped me, but as I looked forward, I was grateful for the lessons learned and excited for what the future might hold. This was not just a new chapter. It was a new volume in the story of my life, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. If today's story resonated with you, or if you've experienced similar challenges in your relationships, remember you're not alone. We hope this video offers some insight or comfort as you navigate your own path forward. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We value your perspectives and would love to hear your stories too. Join us next time for another profound exploration of the heart's resilience. Until then, take care and keep seeking your truth.